turns into mush. Experience and a decent timer will help guard against this, as will the addition of acidic ingredients. Things like vinegar or lime juice, lemon juice, and whatnot will help by reinforcing cell walls. They will also act as color guards, preventing your bright reds and oranges from turning brown or blue, which wouldn't be good. Now toss, using my favorite tools on earth. Time to build. Retrieve your dough disc, which is nicely chilled, and reach in and pull off about a third of it. You don't have to weigh it, you don't have to measure it, just kind of eyeball it. Now, we move down to a buttered baking dish. Now, a cast iron would be okay for this too, but I kind of like glass. I think it makes it easier to serve. A little flour on your fingers and just crumble this up and kind of cover the entire bottom of the dish. Now we can add the fruit, which, as you can see, has turned all of the dry ingredients into a kind of syrup. Everything's kind of dissolved. As we have seen many times on this program before, the handling of thin, wide dough products is treacherous business. To get around this, we will sacrifice a zip-top bag. Just grab your nearest paring knife and slit down one side, across the bottom, up the other side. Take off this top part, slide your hand under, and move over to the dish. Simply invert. There. Now you can actually push down on the plastic and kind of mold around the dish a little bit without getting your hands messy or tearing up the dough. Slide into the middle of a 375-degree oven for 60 minutes or until the top just starts to get golden brown and delicious. Now, if you are going to use frozen fruit, and you can, you're going to need to bump that up to 90 whole minutes. Now, one little tip, there could be some juices trying to escape from that, so make yourself a little tray out of aluminum foil. That'll make cleanup a lot easier. Smell that? You know, one of the great joys of cooking fruit is that it contains a lot of aromatic elements that, being volatile, escape out into the air during cooking. And that makes the whole place smell finger-licking good. Now, 60 minutes is up, and you can see the crust is lightly browned, but I think we could use a little more golden brown and delicious. So switch your oven setting to broil and give it 3 to 5 minutes for the crust to darken a bit. And now the hardest part, letting this cool down for 15 to 30 minutes before you dig in.
It sure smells good.
Doesn't it,
but,
but what?
Peaches?
Yeah, peaches.
Well, it's just that our dinner celebrates the cuisine of the northern shore of the Potomac, not the southern shore.
You're kidding, right, Mr. A?
We at the Institute never kid about food, Mr. Brown.
No. No, I bet you don't. Thank you. Craving cobbler, but find yourself without an oven? Do not despair. Just make like an old school New Englander and punt with a grunt. Place 9½ ounces, that's roughly 2 cups of all-purpose flour in your work bowl of your processor, and add to that 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And just pulse that maybe 3 or 4 times just to combine. Yes, you could use a sifter for this, but you know what? I hate sifters. You can't clean them. They rust. They take up a lot of storage space, and half of the time they're broken. Food processor is always there for you. And of course, it adds air to mixtures, which is nice. Now we'll move this off to a nice big bowl and use our fingers to cut in 2 ounces of unsalted butter that's been chilled. The dough on this cobbler is destined to become dumplings, and dumplings are a lot like biscuits as far as texture goes. That texture comes from rubbing, this rubbing action. We can't get this in a food processor because we're literally coating some of the flour granules completely with butter while leaving chunks all around it. Just can't get this any other way. So we'll make a well in the center of this and pour in 1 cup of buttermilk. Low fat or regular fat, doesn't really matter. And stir it in with either a rubber spatula or a big old wooden spoon. We don't want to stir any more than necessary to just bring it loosely together. Why? Well, we would create gluten, even though some of the flour is protected by butter. Put a little bit of flour down on that before you dump. There we go. Don't forget the part on the spoon. A little dusting of flour on top of that. And just wrap it enough to kind of pull it together into a ball. Get this in the refrigerator. Combine 1 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, and 1 cup of water. Then add in 1 pound, 3 ounces, it's about 4 cups of fresh or frozen blackberries. Toss that to combine and then move that into a 10-inch cast iron skillet set over medium heat. Bring this just to a simmer and then decrease the heat to, let's say, medium-low, and continue cooking and occasionally stirring for about 15 minutes or until the liquid thickens. Berries are soft, liquid is syrupy. Now we're ready to drop some dumplings. Retrieve your chilled dumpling dough from the refrigerator, and if you've got it, grab a 1-ounce disher, a little spring-loaded device, very handy for this. If you don't have one, use a couple of large spoons. Now the trick is to deliver the dumplings so that they move from the outside to the inside. You don't want to pack them in too tightly because they are going to swell during cooking. There. Now would you look at that? They start puffing up like blowfish right away, absorbing, of course, the hot liquid from below. Now, to do these traditionally, you would just cover them up and let them cook over very low heat like chicken and dumplings until the dumplings are just cooked through. Or by finishing this in a 400-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes, you will bring dry heat to the party, and that is exactly what we need to toast the top of the dumplings. Now, I'll admit, this isn't really an authentic approach for a grunt, but I'm suspecting that being a mere mortal, Mr. Avery will fall for the luscious luster of golden brown and delicious. Now, bubblage could be an issue here, so once again, we will use our aluminum safety pan. I'll be back.
You said that this is a traditional New England grunt, correct?
It is indeed. And you know, they say that the name grunt comes from the sound that it makes as it bubbles away on the cooktop.
Well, this appears satisfactory, Mr. Brown. I can accept this as your entry if you're sure.
Why wouldn't I be sure?
Well, it's probably not my place to say, but the Commodore has a bit of a blackberry allergy.
An allergy, huh?
Blows up like a balloon at the sight of them.
Oh, that's just terrible.
Ironic, really. His estate is overrun with them. But that's the English countryside for you.
English, eh? When cobbling, it's important to remember that there are deep cultural divides at work here. The rolled dough is decidedly Southern, the drop dough very New England, but the crumbly, crunchy streusel topping, well, that's very merry old England. To make one, we combine 5 ounces by weight of all-purpose flour, 2/3 of a cup of sugar, 1.5 cups of chopped nuts, walnuts, pecans, what have you, and 1.5 cups of crushed crackers, ginger snaps, or even cereal. Get that in a bowl and mix to combine. Then we're going to cut in 4 ounces of unsalted butter cut into cubes. Phase 2. 12 ounces of berries. I've got a combination of frozen blueberries and raspberries here. Go into a second bowl along with 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and 1/2 cup of our newly minted crisp mixture. Here we go. Stir to combine. Now, although we could just bake this as one big crisp, I prefer to divide my mixture between 4 7 to 8 ounce ramekins, and then just top each of them off with 1/2 cup or a little bit more of the crisp mixture. That way nobody has to fight over portions. Park these in the middle of a 350-degree oven for 30 to 35 minutes, or until the fruit bubbles up and the topping is lightly browned. Then be absolutely certain that you allow these to cool for at least 15 minutes. If you don't, the sauce will not have time to thicken up and gel, and you'll burn your mouth.
Mr. Brown, this is simply divine.
Is it? Really?
Absolutely. Were it up to me, you would be admitted to the Institute at once.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot to me coming from you.
Well, lass, it's not up to me. And since Mr. Yorick is not as dead as was first suspected, your application has been denied. But there's always next year.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Avery, for telling me. So what have we learned here, kids? Well, we've learned that cobbler isn't just a link to the past, it's a bridge to our culinary future. We've also learned that if you got good eats on your plate, you don't need fancy schmancy clubs on your resume. See you next time.